What's up, gearheads? I hope you guys are enjoying some extra time at home, hopefully spent researching gear. Anyway, a couple weeks ago we talked about base layers. This week, let's talk about mid layers. Choosing the right mid layer can be super difficult. There are tons out on the market, and knowing which one's going to be right for you is kind of intimidating. Today, we're going to go over kind of the main two types of insulation that are used in mid layers and why you might want one over another. So what exactly is the mid layer? The mid layer is basically your insulation. You can totally customize your layering system here because you can add as much or as little insulation as you like. Simply speaking, mid layers capture the warm air that you create while you're out hiking or working, and it holds that air against your body to keep you warm. A good rule of thumb when you're talking about insulation is how puffy the jacket is fairly directly related to how warm the jacket is. Again, insulation traps air against your body, and so if there's more trapping space, then you'll be warmer. Let's start by talking about down. Down is an awesome insulation. It's really good at trapping your heat, as well as it's also super compressible. When you're choosing the right down mid layer, there are a couple things that you're going to want to look at. The first thing is fill power. Fill power is a little bit of a tough rating because a lot of people think, okay, so this one's a 900 fill and this one's a 600 fill, so this one's going to be warmer. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Fill power is actually more related to compressibility. So the higher the fill power, the more compressible the coat will be. The problem with down is that it absorbs moisture. And so if you're in a wet environment or if you're sweating at all, the down plumes will absorb moisture and then it won't keep you warm anymore because those down plumes will clump. Some companies like Rab work really closely with other companies to actually waterproof their down. Nikwax, for example, is a great waterproofing company and they treat all of Rab's down with a durable water repellent. I still wouldn't recommend wearing any down jacket as a raincoat. However, the down in Rab's garments won't absorb moisture to a degree. So now that we've talked a little bit about down, let's talk about synthetic. Synthetic, as far as it goes, is awesome. It's really good for almost everybody because you kind of take out that danger aspect where, if the garment were to get wet, it would still totally keep you warm. Choosing down mid layers is relatively straightforward. You've got to kind of find the right amount of warmth and the right amount of compressibility for you. However, choosing synthetic mid layers is a whole other ballgame. You've got all sorts of different types of mid layers, anything from something super breathable to something super windproof and not breathable. You've got anything from something not compressible to something super compressible. So you've got so much to choose from. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, knowing what you're going to be doing is really the best way to kind of narrow down that search. Arc'teryx has a really neat lineup of synthetic mid layers where you can kind of see the hierarchy of how things work. The Proton LT, this guy right here, is super breathable, but not as windproof. As you can imagine, if air can go out, if my warm air can get out so that it breathes, air can also get in. So if it's super windy, it'll slice right through the jacket. The Atom LT, probably Arc'teryx's best-selling piece, is a really neat in-between. The Corloft insulation used in it breathes a little bit, but is also a little bit more windproof. It's kind of the perfect in-between. Arc'teryx also has a Nuclei IFL, which is insanely windproof, also super compressible, but it's really not breathable because it's so windproof. That Arc'teryx lineup is kind of neat to see the hierarchy of something more breathable and less windproof and something more windproof and less breathable. So knowing why you might want one over another is a little bit tougher. If you're going to be exposed to really high winds on a ridge top, then yeah, definitely you'll want something super windproof. But if you're going to be working really hard, you might want something that's also really breathable. And so kind of finding the in-between and finding the right jacket for you takes a little bit of research. Another thing to consider with your mid layers is durability. Lots of the ultralight mid layers, while they're awesome because they're super light, they're also super fragile because that face fabric just can't quite hold up to rips and tears. It's important that you take that into consideration when you're finding the perfect mid layer because ultimately you want something that's going to last a long time too. So if you're fairly rough on your gear, you might want to look at something a little bit more durable. If durability is your thing, you might want to look at some of the static synthetics. Things like fleeces are really great because ultimately if you slash a hole in it, your coat will just have a hole in it. You won't be losing any of your down insulation, those plumes won't be flying everywhere. Your coat will still keep you warm, it'll just have a little tear. So when it comes down to it, you don't necessarily need to decide one or the other. The best mid-layering system is actually often a combination of a couple different layers. You might want to put a vest on top of a different layer. You might want to have a down coat that be super compressible and that you can keep on the bottom of your pack in case you get cold. The best thing about mid layers is that you're not stuck to one layer. You can have 5 if you'd like. You can have as much as you need to really perfect that system. And so that's why it's super customizable. Choosing the right thing is totally a consideration, but maybe you can add a couple different garments together to make the perfect one for you. That's a bit of a basic intro into the mid-layers. I'd really suggest you research through all sorts of different layers in some of your free time and find out exactly which one's right for you. Take into account what kind of trips you're going to be going on, which one's going to be the most versatile for more than one trip, and then find kind of the perfect one for you. So that's been a basic intro into the mid-layers. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comments below.